So, I mean, one of the most important concepts to understand is equity. A lot of the book is about critical race theory, but I don't really call it critical race theory. I call it equity because that's what the school systems call it. And of course, they're going to deny doing CRT, but almost every school district in the country is on record supporting equity. It means equal outcomes by race. And that's basically communism. It means forcing equal outcomes by either bringing the top performers down or by just rigging the stats. But one of the things that these, equity initiatives do is it's a very effective way to seize power. Because in any bureaucracy, you have all these different offices and divisions, right? And it's like little fiefdoms. But what they do is they implant the equity stuff above it all so that every decision from every department has to then be cleared through the diversity or whatever equity department because of its impact on race. And so in Fairfax County, a group called Policy Link and the Government Alliance for Racial Equity, which are two nonprofits that most people haven't heard of, but they're very important nodes in this effort to kind of take over local governments to spread this radical agenda. And they've been doing it for about a decade. So they did a study, one of them essentially did a study on Fairfax County to determine, like, how can we take it over? And so they did that through a lot of plotting over many years. And they passed this policy that said, every decision must be made through the lens of equity. And then they hired this firm to basically tell them what that meant. It included both the school system and the county government. So it was a very powerful policy. And what was remarkable is if you go into the documents about these two activist groups, they're very explicit about their methodology for taking over, and it's almost like dominoes. We'll take over this county and then this town and then this city. And those groups, one of them, Policy Link, I think covers more than 10% of all Americans. They've colonized a good portion of America for these radical policies. And so I look at it as essentially as, well, we're all paying attention to Washington. What's your opinion on the president? And really, honestly, we all have our opinion about the president, but it doesn't count for much. Where we can have an impact is local government. But there was almost no one going to these sleepy town halls or county council meetings. And who was showing up was essentially lobbyists for these radical groups. And they very meticulously decided to take over every county in the country, just knocking them over like dominoes.
Fascinating. You just reminded me of something. You mentioned that the term equity, you contend, is actually used because they did some kind of focus groups, right? And they said, equity is something that we can actually, get people to respond the right way around, right?
Exactly. I mean, they were talking about disproportionality, policies like affirmative action or disproportionality. People kind of see not every statistic has to be equal. That's kind of a crazy concept. But they put a lot of energy and effort into studying it all. How can we manipulate people by using language? And they realized that equity was, a lot of Americans were not paying attention. They literally thought equity was the same as equality just because they sound similar. And I hate to say it was as simple as that, but those couple letter changes, they make a huge difference.
We live in an era of censorship and disinformation, and it can be really hard to know what's true and what's false in this information climate. To get honest information and insights you can trust, join us on Epoch TV. You can sign up for your 14-day free trial at ept.ms/free trial Jan. That's ept.ms/free trial JAN.
Right, and because equity is effectively this equality of outcome.
Correct.
And you're saying, in practice, you're saying that always sort of means equalizing around the bottom. And you offer a number, maybe give me a few examples where that actually has happened.
Yeah, so during the Obama administration, there was concern about discipline disparities in schools. And they call it the school-to-prison pipeline, which essentially means that black boys are suspended more than other people in schools. And so Obama sent a letter from the Department of Justice to every school system saying you're going to be investigated unless your discipline rates were the same for all races. And so the rate of Asians suspended for bringing knives to school had to be the same as the rate of blacks for bringing knives to school. But what if one of them brings more knives to school than the other? What do you do? And so you wind up just having to cook the books and let people off the hook for committing serious infractions. And so there was people being beaten up every single day in schools, and the school was just doing nothing about it because they didn't want to send a spreadsheet that had the wrong number of blacks suspended. And so, for example, in Los Angeles, over a couple years during the Obama administration, the number of suspensions went from 75,000 a year to only 5,000 a year. So it's essentially just the total curtailing of any disciplinary actions in schools. But unfortunately, it wasn't because the kids got better behaved. So that's kind of what equity is. Instead of changing behaviors, you just change superficially so that the optics look better.
Right, because then you can say, wow, like we've actually reduced the number of disciplinary actions dramatically. I don't know what percent it would be.
Yeah, exactly. And then another one is merit, these magnet schools, and this is really important, things like Stuyvesant in New York City, or Lovell in San Francisco, or Thomas Jefferson in Fairfax County. These are magnet schools dedicated to cultivating our best and brightest and working really hard, and they go on to do things like create the next coronavirus vaccine. Jonas Salk, who invented the polio vaccine, went through these specialized schools in New York City. And so it's been incredible to see the school system start devaluing academic accomplishment. And literally the teachers have turned against working hard and doing homework and getting the right answers, all in pursuit of equal outcomes. Because what you could do is try to help the minority so that they do better, but the teachers have essentially said, no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to stop measuring. And so they try to do away with tests where these disparities are revealed and say, like, it's bad to test kids because whatever, they have all their excuses. But it's really to prevent creating this paper trail. But again, I mean, if you want to help minorities and poor kids, you do it the same way you help anyone else. You give them that rigorous education in math and science and writing, and then they go on to get these well-paid jobs. So essentially, yeah, in pursuit of equity, they have stopped measuring things. They've started cooking the books. They started orienting everything around the lowest common denominator. And the result is really devastating for society, not long into the future, but like over the next 5 to 10 years, where we're having kids that we're not even trying to get them to be smart because it's better for the teachers to look like they're succeeding, they're not failing these kids, and they're not creating these disparities.